This story begins somewhere in Canada. A man named Bob Longmore drives to the mill where he works. Reluctantly, he gets out of the car and begins to work. Elsewhere, we see a woman named Darlene having some trouble with her teenage daughter, Eva. She tries to have a word with Eva, but the teenager just storms out of the house angrily. It turns out that Darlene is Bob's ex-wife, and Eva is his daughter, whom he left about 8 years back. Since then, Darlene has remarried a female partner, but Eva hasn't been the same without her father. Meanwhile, back at the sawmill, Bob tries to teach his coworker something, but then suddenly feels a very sharp pain by the side of his abdomen. It seems like it's not the first time it's happened to him because he's not too surprised. Regardless, he gets off work early and heads home where he tries to rest. That's when he receives an unexpected call from Darlene. She seems happy to hear his voice after many years, but Bob is just exhausted and pissed off to hear hers. She asks how he's doing, but he tells her to just cut to the chase and state why she's calling. So she tells him that their daughter Eva needs him because she's been very rebellious lately. Darlene tells him how his absence affected her and expresses her fears that she might not even go to college. She begs Bob to visit and come see them, but he just tells her to forget him and hangs up the phone. Later that evening, he smokes a cigarette and tries to relax while watching a movie. That's when we see that the skin on his body is gradually turning invisible. Just like before, he's not surprised by it, but he's very bothered and doesn't know what to do about the situation. Afterward, he goes to a bar to get a drink and clear his head. There, the bartender who has a crush on him flirts with him, but Bob couldn't seem less interested in her. They're interrupted when a local drug dealer named Nelson walks into the bar to do his usual business. Later, we see that Bob is one of Nelson's customers. He buys some of the substance from him, although at an increased price. One day at the mill, Bob considers killing himself. He can't get himself to do it, so he decides to go visit Darlene and Eva in his former home. That night, he sets off in his old pickup truck, but along the way, he suddenly feels the sharp pain again, and it causes him to crash into a ditch and wreck his truck. He sustains some injuries, but manages to get back on his feet. He calls Nelson and asks him for help with his truck, informing him that the accident happened east of town. Nelson already has an impression of Bob, who used to be a professional hockey player back in the day. Despite his injuries, Bob manages to limp to a nearby diner. There, everyone is shocked to see the bloody man enter the place, but he just casually asks for a coffee and heads into the bathroom to get himself cleaned up. In the bathroom, he sees through his now transparent skin that he has a broken rib, so he just covered it with a bandage. When he comes out, he's met by Nelson's boss Crisby, who informs him that his truck is damaged. He asks him which way he's going, and when Bob says south, Crisby offers to fix his truck that same night if Bob helps him deliver a package. Bob accepts the deal along with some travel money. The next morning, while the truck is getting fixed and Bob is asleep, Crisby shoots a black bear and takes out its heart. He then places it in a cooler and gives Bob the instructions, reminding him to replace the ice when due. After his truck is fixed, Bob sets off with the package, and later that night, when replacing the ice, he finds out what's inside the cooler. Soon, he arrives at Darlene's house. She's delighted to see him, but we can't say the same about him. She tells him that she's at home by herself since her spouse is away, and Eva is sleeping over at a friend's place. She asks Bob to stay over, and he reluctantly agrees, spending the night on the living room couch. The next morning, he plays some street hockey with a stick and some cans. He's interrupted when Eva returns home. She doesn't show it, but she's very happy to see him. However, Bob tells her that he has to deliver a package. She asks if she can go with him, but he tells her no, and so she instantly gets upset. Afterward, Bob goes to deliver Crisby's package to a man named Milton. When he gets there, Milton mocks him for quitting hockey when he had so much potential, and then gives him a package for Crisby. When Bob returns home, Eva suddenly asks him about his father, who is allegedly mentally ill, so he tells her how his old man committed suicide. Eva tells him she has to meet with some friends, and Bob tells her that he'd like to spend more time with her afterward. She then leaves and goes to a Chinese market, where a woman compliments her on her clear skin and gives her a special tea and suggests she take it for any skin problems. Afterward, Eva joins her friends, Amelia, Augie, and Benji. As per her request, they all go to the mental hospital where her grandfather was admitted to search for files or records about him. They all sneak in and follow the path to an underground basement. There, they get frightened by a man, and Amelia has a panic attack. In the process, she sees Eva's skin turning invisible and gets freaked out by it. Meanwhile, Bob and Darlene reminisce about the time when they raised Eva together, and she reveals that after he left, she lied to her daughter about the real reason he didn't stay. Turns out, Bob's skin condition has been going on for years, and that's the reason he had to leave them. The next morning, Darlene's new partner, Mal, returns home, and she's not happy to see Bob. They find out that Eva is missing and not answering her phone, so Mal blames Bob for it. After Mal and Darlene go out to look for her, Bob searches Eva's room and finds her broken phone and the tea, implying that she came home the previous night. He gets the phone fixed, and after unlocking it, he discovers the meetup that Eva planned with her friends. The search begins for Eva, but Crisby starts calling Bob, demanding that he wants his package. Bob has more pressing responsibilities at the moment, so he tells Crisby that he'll have to wait, and this annoys him. After ending the call, Bob goes to interrogate Benji and Augie. They tell him that they went to the mental hospital, but admit that they didn't know where she went after they left. Without wasting any time, Bob and Darlene head down to the mental hospital, but when they get there, the officials insist that they haven't seen their daughter. Meanwhile, Bob has some history with the place, because that's the same hospital his father was taken to after he attempted to burn himself alive. The doctors there decided to detain him there and study him for years. Now, they're planning to do the same thing with Bob. The head doctor tells Darlene to go home and detains Bob after he causes a scene. She tells him that they can help him get over the trauma, but he insists on going to find Eva. Eventually, they detain him, but he escapes at night. When he gets home, Crisby calls him again, and this time, he sounds more menacing. He threatens to travel down for the package and hurt Bob's family if he doesn't deliver it immediately. Afterward, Amelia sends a text to Eva's phone, asking her to come over because her ward, Wayne, is threatening to harm her. Bob goes to Amelia's house to stop Wayne, but finds out that it's not that serious. Before leaving, Amelia tells him about Eva's condition, saying that she's like him, desperate to find his daughter. Bob takes the stuff that he found in Eva's room to Milton and asks him where he thinks she got it. He gives Bob an address that leads him to the Chinese market. There, he asks about Eva and finds out that the doctor there kidnapped her and is using her for experiments. He fights off the workers and frees Eva before they both return home. However, he gets injured, and so Darlene miraculously helps him stitch his wounds, even as most of his skin is now invisible. The next day, Bob and Eva do some catching up, and he explains that his mysterious disease is why he had to leave, so that she could have a normal life. With Eva no longer missing, Bob decides to travel back so he can deliver Crisby's package, but he's not strong enough, so Eva volunteers to drive him. When they get back, he gives Nelson the package, but when Crisby receives it, he realizes that Bob's delay has ruined his business. Meanwhile, Bob continues to turn invisible even faster, so he spends some time bonding with Eva. Eventually, he decides that it's time for him to go, so he leaves her in the house and goes to the mill to kill himself. The next morning, Crisby goes to Bob's house to seek revenge for ruining his business with Milton, but only finds Eva there. He quickly realizes that she's his daughter and decides that she's going to pay for what Bob did. However, just when he's about to lay a hand on her, Bob, who's now completely invisible, attacks him and kills him. He then dumps the body near the dump yard that the bears usually scavenge. Afterward, Bob tells Eva how someone helped him escape from the mental hospital. At that moment, she also remembers how someone also helped her and her friends escape from the guards, so they conclude that it was Bob's father. The story ends with the invisible father and his daughter traveling back home to meet Bob's father.